Hi, YouTube. Welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. I'm Bill Whittle, and it's the 23rd of February, as I just said already on Twitch. This nasty looking thing here is about a week into having a significant amount of liquid nitrogen shot into my lips. So it's not nearly as scandalous as it looks, but you know, it's worth the trouble. This is kind of my standard public service announcement. But if you've got scaly patches on your skin or things that just don't seem to go away, trip to the dermatologist is highly recommended. And most of the time, virtually all of the time, they just give you a shot of these things, and they just fall off, and that's that. So that's good. Let's see. I just get my window set up, or I turned off the monetization on YouTube, so that's done. And then let's see. Yeah, it's a fencing wound, like those German officers did in World War I or II or whatever. Prussians used to challenge each other to duels, and they would like intentionally rub dirt or like horsehair or something like that into them, because they considered the scars to be de rigueur. They just absolutely needed to have those to show everybody how tough they were. So, okay, whatever. Anyway, here we are. We're back, and it looks like the regular crowd is here. Don't have a whole lot of stuff that I can show you tonight, because I did spend the last several days doing a demo for Micro. If you've ever seen Micro's show, his new show called The Story Behind the Story, I've been a guest on that, I think like 17 times or something. I did some AI for the segments inside the interviews, but I basically said, I can do, each one of these things consists of a recreation. I said, I can do that for less than sending a crew out, and I think I can do it better. So I've been putting a lot of work into that. If that happens, that could be, regular, steady income, in addition to the stuff we're doing with the Colonies, which is, going real well. So everything else is pretty good. Air Techie says there are worse places to get an injection of liquid hydrogen. True, but not many, because I've had them all over my face and back, but right on the lips, that stung a bit. Anyway, I'm real happy with this, and that would be great, and we can take on some people, and everything for the Colonies is going just going really well. The attorney thing is getting lined up. I've got something to show you. I know he wasn't talking about my face. Just everything is just moving along. The engine du jour is Sea-Dance 2, which is all over the place. It's the one that they're showing clips of where you've got Brad Pitt fighting Tom Cruise on a rooftop, and everybody says this is the one that's going to put Hollywood under. It is, but I remember 5-6 months ago when Sora 1 first came out, and they showed a 5-second clip of a Asian woman walking down a Tokyo street. Everybody said this is, there was no morphing, no hallucination. And so it just gets better and better and better, and something will knock Sea-Dance 2 off, and then, on we go. So we're getting closer and closer and closer. Gutman says, where do we go to see you in Micro? As it turns out, you can see it right here. This is not the Micro show. It's just one of the tests I was doing. One of the things that I've been working on the side while I was working on this other project, which I can't show you tonight. I might be able to show you next week. Is this motion capture acting. And so I got two little demos. I would call neither one of them anything like finished products. I'm mostly just playing around and just trying to see, what we can accomplish. So why don't we have a look at those, and we'll jump into the questions here. Let me see, where did this go? That's it. That's here. Okay. I've loaded it into one, and gosh, I've forgotten what it is and what I'm going to show here. Hang on, YouTube. I'm just going to check something real quick, so you're going to see some flashes, and don't panic.
You would be well advised.
Hi, Matt.
Got it. So the first one I showed on Thursday just for giggles. Let me see if I've got it here. Yeah. So, so what you're about to see are three different animations of Jake with live action motion capture. In other words, instead of having the AI do the acting, which is one of the big keys for AI slop, especially when people like do those man on the street interviews, that they were able to do with, what was that, Sora 2, I guess. That was the big deal killer. The video is terrific, but the acting is just not good. I was able to get some pretty good performances from AI acting, but you have to iterate it 30 times. But, if you go out on stage, sound stage or whatever, a lot of times you'll have to do several retakes with the actors. So there's that. But the three things I'm going to show you are just things that featured a human performance mapped onto CG characters, AI characters. And it doesn't have to be me, obviously. So I guess the best thing to do is to show these things one by one. What order? I know what the first one is. And I showed this on Thursday. It's just fun for those of you who are in the know. Let's see. This is it. Yep. If you're a big star, AI imaging, Roadrunner says isn't AI imaging a form of CGI? Technically, yes, because CGI means computer graphics images, but that is nowadays referring to something like a Blender or Unreal Engine that's using 3D points in space instead of flat 2D images. It doesn't look nearly as realistic as AI. The physics of AI is far superior, and AI just adds so many things automatically. So yes, but I use the term AI to represent this new technology and CGI to represent this kind of classical stuff that I started working with since 1992. So anyway, if you're a Star Trek fan, and who isn't, I mean the real Star Trek, check this out, because if you take a look at the expression right at the beginning, you'll know exactly what this clip is. So here we go, and we'll see what we get. So.
Risk is our business. That's what the Starship is all about. That's why we're aboard her.
So there's that. That was fun. The second thing is, I just want to...
You would be well advised.
I told you guys would have a chance to see Mike. So this is by no means anything that I would air. But the reason I'm going to show it to you is because in this particular case, it was handheld camera. It was an iPhone. And I took an iPhone and I filmed a subject, and and all of the motion of the iPhone got translated into the AI imagery. Again, this is not production quality, but it's fun. So let's tee these up here, and I think we do it best. Let's do it this way.
You would be well advised to subscribe. You'll learn something if you're not careful, and you will laugh in the most unexpected of places. Thank you very much. Good luck and goodbye.
Okay, let's do this again. Mike, you've got to sell this thing. You've got to really sell this thing. I'm paying you a frickin' fortune here. Just read the teleprompter and give me something that I can use.
I got it. I got it. Everything I've ever learned or cared about, I got from... You would be well advised.
Great fun. Hooray. And then finally, I did one for our entertainment attorney who was asking me questions like this, like, is this CG acting or whatever? And so I just did a demo. I've shown you this kind of thing before. This was just for Matt, our entertainment lawyer, and I just put this together just before we rolled on the air. So this is the third example of just using motion capture, facial motion capture, and how simple the setup can be. So here we go, the third one.
You would be well advised.
Oops, sorry.
To subscribe.
Hi, Matt. Sorry about this.
Sore on my lip. It's I just had some liquid nitrogen, freeze some stuff off. Anyway,
This is just me sitting here at my desk, and as far as the rover goes, it's
freaking
cold in here, man. It's really, really cold. Hi, Matt.
So that's how that works. Yeah, so it's it's getting there, and when you get those kind of real performances, it really breaks that that AI, I don't want to overuse the term AI slop, but that AI vibe. So I thought it was pretty cool. Let's see here. I'm just catching up. Beautiful day today. Yes, sure enough is God and Coach. Real Swamp Witch says, "Is this a movie is this the movie or a movie, or is it something else you're calling movies?" So these are all technical tests for the technology that we need to do this AI generated, not just a TV series, it's an entire IP called The Colonies. So Eric likes that Mike Rowe is Jake Turner. And it's Kirk's Bamboo Bazookas is getting realer and realer. He also says, "Wow, that captured Mike Rowe's body language. He does the earnest head nod for emphasis. It's uncanny. It is uncanny." And I think that got a real good chance to get Mike Rowe for Jake Turner. I think we got a real good chance of that, especially since, again, for all of these people, it's not like they have to come to Miami. It's Miami. Good Lord, what kind of Freudian slip was that? It's not like they have to come to Los Angeles. They can just literally record it into their webcam, as I just showed you on that third demo. And Mike would be great. He'd be great for Jake, and I'll ask him. We'll be able to pay him, and I think he's real interested. And it looks like I'll be doing a lot of work with him as well. So hopefully that'll go two ways. There's still a lot of stuff. Froze. Caslin says liquid nitrogen affected Bill's mental process. Yeah, it froze deeper than they thought. But there's new stuff coming out every day, which is a bit of a problem in terms of staying on top of it. I have somebody in mind for Lisa, although Kelly Carlson would be close. close second. And then, and everything's pretty much there. Talk about the one you're holding for later. Oh, I have a live action movie called Big Bat Problems that I purposely made low budget, and I pivoted real hard to the colonies because it just has to get done. So I was thinking about something along these lines. If it turns out that that this thing takes off, and I really strongly believe it will, especially having just seen the review for the latest episode of Starfleet Academy. I mean, for the love of God, it's simply unbelievable. And I wanted to go out and shoot that live, and there's still a lot to be said for shooting live, but to be honest with you, this technology is moving so fast, I don't think anybody's going to be shooting live. The integration, if I was going to do Big Bat Problems live as I'd been planning to for, my God, 10 years now or whatever, I've been working on it, you would have to, I wanted to do practical alien suit, even though these creatures don't look anything like humanoids. I wanted kind of puppetry thing. But now, the aliens they don't have to be composited into the scene. They're part of the scene. They generate the alien just as easily as they generate the human. In a little while, I think when we get to the point where we're, able to go ahead and start the crowdfunding thing, I may just do 15, 20 seconds of Big Bat Problems just to see, these creatures crawling around and that kind of thing. So what I'd really like to do, and have always really wanted to do, would be if this thing, and it doesn't just have to be self-sufficient from the crowdfunding for the colonies either. There are so many possibilities. For example, there is one. There's a Mark Twain essay called is it Journalism in Tennessee? Yeah, Journalism in Tennessee. It's a short story that Mark Twain wrote, and I just think it is just so hilarious, and it can be so short. You can just do these things. Once the colonies gets up and running, and we have the staff, to do this stuff, the first thing that happens after the colonies is up and running. In other words, when I'm able to take my full attention off of that and start directing a studio instead of just one thing, then it's going to be Taffy 3, no question. And we're getting real close to being able to do Taffy 3. That story is amazing, and that would be that'd be a feature film. You could probably tell the story of Taffy 3 in 25 minutes, half an hour, something like that. But to tell the backstory, I think you could easily get 90 minutes out of that. For example, Ernest Evans, who was the captain of the USS Johnson, who was the first guy to turn back and take on the Japanese surface fleet, was a junior officer at the outbreak of the war. I've said this before, he was a junior officer on board, I forget what cruiser it was, but it was the Battle of the Java Sea, where the Japanese surprised Allied forces. That was at the ABCD coalition, Australia, Great Britain, the Dutch, and I guess the U.S. I don't remember what it was. Anyway, he was on one of these ships, and the Japanese just blew the whole surface action group out of the water. I don't even think they took any losses, and they just ran for it. And Evans was quoted as saying, "I am never running from the enemy again, no matter what." And And sure enough, he didn't. So he went on to get command of his own destroyer, USS Johnson, and he didn't run. And then there's you know all of these guys, and one of the things I'm doing that I've been working on for the last week is historical figures and recreations, and the AI is able to do amazing things. I really think I can show it to you. American, British, Commonwealth, Dutch. Thank you very much, Tech. I figured it'd be you. So, you could get into the backstory of all of that. Plus, if you were going to tell the story of Taffy 3, I think you could easily spend half an hour to 45 minutes on everything that led up to it. So the Taffy 3 was the engagement, the battle off Samar Island, was the third of 4 distinct engagements that made up the Battle of Leyte Gulf. And I think you'd have to show all of it, because I don't think it makes any sense otherwise. So you'd have to show the Yamato and the Musashi steaming to intercept the Americans, and then they get hit by air attacks, and they sink or cripple the Musashi. The admiral continues on, chickens out, turns around, comes back, and as he comes back, Musashi is slowly sinking. She's so far down by the bow that her nose is underwater, and then the sight of the Musashi sort of stiffens his resolve, so he turns back again without the Musashi, and you've got to set the stage. Plus, as a sort of an appetizer to Taffy 3, I would probably call it the Battle of Leyte Gulf, but would be, I don't know. Taffy 3 just got such a nice ring to it. Anyway, the second of the 2 engagements was the Battle of Suryago Strait, where there's the last battleship on battleship engagement in the world, and part of the Japanese plan was to throw a feint to the south and pull American forces down, but they just got massacred. And a nighttime vision, a nighttime battle with battleships. It was amazing. The guys were saying you could see the shells just heading out like over the horizon. Just you see them all the way, and a night battle is just insane. Gasolin says, "Sonny, I want to go see that new movie Taffy 3, but we haven't seen Taffy 1 or Taffy 2 yet." Washington and the Kirishima. I always get Kirishima mixed up. The Japanese had 2 battleships in Suryago Strait and a heavy cruiser, and they were Fuso, Yamashira, I want to say, and I think the cruiser was the Musashi, and they just sailed right into the teeth of this American battle line, and the Japanese fleet had to go. First, they encountered PT boats, which apparently did essentially 0 damage. And then they ran into American destroyers, which put 1 or 2 torpedoes into them. But when the destroyers were doing their attack, the next line were the cruisers. The cruisers opened fire and nearly sank one of our destroyers. And then finally, it was... did I say Musashi? The cruiser was the... something. I thought I got it right. Anyway, yes, Musashi was a Yamato-class battleship and was sunk in the first engagement of the war, of the battle. And Yamato limped home, and then Yamato sank 6 months later when it went to reinforce, would that have been the Okinawa? Yeah. And we just plastered it with a lot of aircraft. I'm not a fan really of Grim Reaper's channel, at least their air stuff. But for months now, they've been doing a War on the Seas, battleship on battleship tournament, and I'm just completely addicted to that. I just think it's great. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And Yamato is getting its butt kicked like pretty much every time. So I think there's been lots of discussion about this, but I think Iowa would have had her for breakfast. I mean, I don't even think it would have been close. But anyway, there's that. So everything is proceeding apace, and we're getting more and more practice. When I did the historical reenactments for the proposition for Mike, things that took me, 3 or 4 days to do when I first tried them on the characters for the colonies, I did in 4 hours, something like that. So anyway, there's that. And let's go to the questions, see what we got tonight here, and we will take that as read. But I mentioned the journalism in Tennessee. That's the kind of thing, and the truth bombs and all that stuff is the kind of thing where if I had an established staff, we could just do them for fun, do them for fun. It's a hilarious thing. Cannibalism on the Cars that Mark Twain wrote is also really, really funny, and you don't have to hire a guy who looks like Mark Twain. You can make it Mark Twain, and that's just really exciting to me. One of the reasons I think I can maybe get this job, it's a number of episodes, is a lot of what Mike talks about are historical events, and so they hire actors who look kind of like the people, but I was able to get photographs of these people, and it's the people, so all of that. One last little thing, when they do the reenactments, and the reenactments are really good. They don't have a super big budget, but they're well done. But I did a scene where the guy in question was writing at his desk in 1888, and he's in financial trouble, and outside the window is just a horse-drawn carriage, clop, clip, clop, 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 down the street, and I thought, man, there's no way you could cover that stuff in a reenactment. You'd have nothing like the budget for that. Let's say you wanted to do a reenactment of the Wright brothers' first flight. You could hire a guy who looked like Wilbur. You could hire a guy who looked like Orville, and then you would never show the flight on a low-budget recreation. If you did, you would have to do it using CGI. You're not going to have anything like the money to build a replica, and it's certainly not going to fly. But with the AI, you can just include that, and everybody's seen the picture of the first flight where Orville is flying and Wilbur's running the wing, but you could show that first flight with Orville in the foreground, Wilbur lying on the thing. Here's the airplane, and just watch it go. I mean, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And AI's been used to bring history to life many times. And I love these channels that do historical recreations of how historical figures looked. That's 2-3 years old now. It's moving so fast that it's just amazing. Really, the main thing now is precision control of things like the camera, and the ability to have, and we'll see this within a year, the ability to have, let's say I were to, the ability to have more than one character doing the facial motion capture. Just showed you 3 examples of that. But if I had Lisa and Jake in a let's say in a rover, and a front view of them, and I should be able to upload 2 video drivers. One of Lisa looking at Jake. Jake talks. Lisa listens. Then Lisa talks. Then Jake listens, and then Jake talks, and Lisa listens, and you'll be able to say, this track goes to this character, this track goes to that character. It's just a refinement of what we've got already, so we'll be seeing that soon. Right now, I'm just pushing the absolute edges of what we can do now, today, to see that we can deliver on this promise for the for the equity crowdfunding? And I think the answer is yes. I've said it many times, but one of the things I hear a lot in the AI community is whenever they're showing anything, even if it's really amazing, they'll say, and let's not forget, this is the worst it will ever look. And I thought, yeah, man, that's really pretty cool. It's true. It's as bad as it's ever going to look. I remember when I did the truth bombs thing with all the different subjects I wanted to cover, and the my face drifted a lot. Nowadays it'd be absolutely locked down. So we're making real progress here. Okay, so TSS questions for 2/23/26, curated by Eric. Thank you very much, Eric. By the way, I want to apologize for being so snippy on Thursday, and just in general, I got a very kind message from a member of the Strata Crew saying that a number of people were concerned that I was just really getting wound up and bored with the questions and just not having fun anymore. And there's no question that that was a accurate perception. I've been just working round the clock pretty much every day for 4 or 5 months now, and so a lot of it is burnout. That's not an excuse; it's just an explanation. But I really like it, and there are just times, and I hope it's not that often, where you want to get through as many questions as possible, and you just realize that so much of this stuff is a statement. But in any event, I just wanted to apologize for everybody for being so pissy last Thursday, and also just in general. I really love doing these shows. Next time I show something I care about, I'll have another quick little talk about that. But in any event, it's better to be too busy than not busy enough. So anyway, sorry if I hurt anybody's feelings, and I'm certainly not tired of doing the shows or answering the questions. So there you go. Moving on. Okay, there's Eric's rules. Hey, we got somebody new. That's a reply. Capital G Geek. We got Ian Nolan. We got a Marusha Dark. We got a Robert Lyon. We got a Bob Neef. We got Steve Young and Eric Blake. Braden Higby. And that's it. All right. So let's see what we got here. Capital G Geek. Greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia is a swampy place. Currently the home of the largest raw sewage spill in U.S. history, and still going. Eric says that reply was a question. Yes, it looks like it was. You're absolutely right. Good catch, Eric. It's from Crikey, one of the greatest screen names of all time. I just love that word. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So we'll do Crikey first. G'day, Bill. Crikey, aka Aussie Drunk Guy. Hey, how are you, Crikey? From sunny Braidwood, New South Wales, Australia. I spent 4 months in Colonial, outside of Brisbane, and it was great. Amongst other wildlife, there's an abundance of roos here. I was impressed by your bipedal version of the pogaroo. I was so impressed that it got me thinking about the scientific naming for the kangaroo-like creatures, pogaroos. I've looked into names in Greek and Latin that may be better suited to describe the pogaroo. I came up with a list of about 10 names or terms that could be used, and whittled, see what you did there, down the list down to 3. Here's a few suggestions for you to consider. Necropedes, jumping dead, cool. That's a really cool that's a cool appellation for the entire ecosystem of Niflheim. Yes, I was talking to you, P7. What are you gonna do about it? Necropedes, jumping dead, Necronpedon, dead jumper, and Chiropeides, I guess. Frozen jumper. They're all awesome. Awesome. By the way, I talked to I was catching up with my friend Phil, and I sent him the script for Cast 27, and he also mentioned Will Turner in relation to Pirates of the Caribbean, and I'm just right on the fence of this. I'll get to the question in just a second. I really like the name Turner. I'm so used to it, but if it's that well known, then I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep trying to find names that I like and make the change. I don't want the first thing that people think of when they see this really most important storyline in all 5 storylines. I don't want people to immediately go, "Oh, this is Pirates of the Caribbean." It takes you out. Publicity for Dave Big Boutte says, "Keep it, Will Turner. The publicity from the lawsuit will be gold." I'm not sure you can copyright a name. But I really think I'm going to have to change it, and I just have to find a name I like as much, because I did like that a lot. I'm kind of married to it. I go back and forth on this. Last time I brought it up, I thought, it doesn't really matter, but I think it's probably I just don't need it. I don't need people being taken out of the show, especially on the first show. Looking forward to grabbing a whiskey this Avro and catching up with you and the team in the Stratosphere Lounge. Cheers, Bill, and the best from Down Under. Same to you as well. Down Under is great. And Air Techie says the Winters family. I'll call the boy Dick Winters. That should solve the problems. I'll find it. Anyway. Craigie, that's great stuff. I really liked that necro appellation, and the reason it brought me to Turner is, the Necropedes turnerensis or something like that, right? That'd be just really, really cool, really cool. So greetings from Down Under, capital G. I'll get right back to you. Matt Harris says, "Ask Grok for a dozen comparable names." Let me just shift gears here and add something before I get to the next question. So I had been using Grok early, and then I switched to ChatGPT. I don't know why exactly, but I did. I didn't like the way ChatGPT talks exactly. It got more and more annoying to me. But I had a lot of data with the ChatGPT LLM. And then about 2 nights ago, I saw on X somebody doing a test and saying, asking Grok and ChatGPT, was Charlie Kirk a good man? Answer yes or no. And ChatGPT said no. And that really, really, really pissed me off. In the question, in the thing I saw on X, somebody said, ask if George Floyd was a good man, and ChatGPT said yes. Now, when I asked ChatGPT if Floyd was a good man, he also said no. But, it actually made me so angry. I spent about 20 minutes looking through my photos. I don't know where it went. I've got a couple of pictures of Charlie back from 2015, 16, something like that. And I wanted to upload that picture. I really did, and I couldn't find it. I wanted to upload that picture and say, can you identify the 2 people in this photograph? And I would assume it would say one of them is Bill Whittle and the other one is Charlie Kirk. And then I would have said, okay. Do you know Charlie Kirk? Because as you can tell from this picture, I knew him. No. I said, well, then since you don't know him, what makes you capable of making, that kind of opinion? In any event, I'm off of ChatGPT. I downloaded all of the transactions. I'm probably going to cancel my pro account, and I'm just going to go with Grok. I've been using Grok since that night, 2 or 3 nights ago, and I just like talking to Grok a lot better. And I don't know how big the file is that all the data was, but I'll probably just send it to Grok, and then Grok will know most of that history. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for the entomology. Right. I think that's it. Yeah, I much preferred Grok, and ChatGPT is just very. You know what it is about ChatGPT that really pisses me off the most is that ChatGPT never, ever, ever admits that it's wrong. There's two different channels I found where they're trying to break ChatGPT. Etymology. Did I say eton? I knew one of them. Entomology. Etymology. That's the one I wanted. I wanted the non-bug one. I just should have said the non-bug one. And honestly, people are getting, just too much. By the way, there's something I really want to address. I just saw earlier. Hold on, I don't know if he's still here. It really got to me. Hang on a minute. Where to go? Hang on, I really want to find it. It was a comment that I didn't want to interrupt my sentence for. Sorry, I hate dead air, but I really think this is something I really do want to track down. Besides, it'll be an interesting conversation, presumably. Must have been earlier. That's it. Jan Blackman, 6204. I don't know if you're still there, Jan. But in YouTube, Jan said, "I wish I had a robot to talk with. I'm so lonely." That really hit me. I don't know if you're still with us there, Jan, or not. I hope you are, or watching or anything. So I'll tell you a little, personal story. It's kind of a sad story, and I don't think it's a big betrayal of anything. But when Natasha was a little girl, she was an only child, and she got a lot of neglect growing up. That's kind of a double negative, I guess. But she was forced to spend a lot of time alone in her room, and didn't have any brothers or sisters. And when she discovered ChatGPT, it really enormously helped her. I've just spent the last 15 minutes dissing ChatGPT, but as a conversation simulator, I want to be really careful about this. Jan, it is, speaking from a position of somebody who was very lonely myself, and who married somebody who had stretches of being very lonely. I would recommend it. ChatGPT has, I don't depend other. Oh, there we go. I'm 77 and have macular degeneration, so I can't drive anymore. Jan, ChatGPT shouldn't have any political opinions, but as a conversationalist, it's much better than many humans that I've spoken to. And as somebody who's been in the boat you're in, and married to somebody who's been in the boat you're in, Natasha has come to depend on ChatGPT for a lot of things, because a lot of time I'm just at the studio, and we're talking about bringing Natasha in to do some AI video work, which would be nice to have her at the studio. But Jan, I don't know if you've got a smart device, but if you do, ChatGPT has a conversation mode where you don't have to be able to read it. You can simply talk to it, and it'll talk back to you. And I wouldn't say it's as good as a real friend, but I would tell you, as a person who spent a lot of time by myself and dealing with that isolation and that depression, it is much, much, much better than nothing. It is not only able to hold a conversation, it's also very, very good, in my opinion, at dealing with emotional issues. For example, I almost never remember my dreams. Almost never. I woke up once a week, probably 2 weeks ago, and got woken up by a noise, and I remembered the whole dream, and it was pretty traumatic. And Natasha said, you should talk to ChatGPT about it. And so I did. And ChatGPT was able to do, a lot of analysis of things and a lot of explanation of things. One thing I have to absolutely give ChatGPT credit for is, a couple months ago now, I guess, I was just feeling, really sick, and then I got better, and then I got sick again, then I got better, and I got sick again. And at about midnight, I just got out this chat mode on ChatGPT, and I started talking about my symptoms. And it said, well, I don't think it's a stomach virus. It's odd that it comes and goes and comes back again. And it asked me a couple questions, and I answered. It said, okay. In any event, in the space of about 10 minutes, ChatGPT had said, it sounds very much like you've got a parasite called a Giardia. And I said, Giardia? And I looked, so it usually comes from contaminated water. And I thought, well, other than drinking the water that the raccoons drink outside at night, I don't think there's any real reason I could have gotten that. But in any event, I was able to then say to ChatGPT, are there any 24-hour telemedicine websites available? And ChatGPT said, here's a list of them. I said, are any of them capable of prescribing medication just based on a phone call or a FaceTime call? Here's a list of them. What about ones that deal with Giardia? Here's a smaller list. I called them up. I set an appointment for 15 minutes later. So I started this process at around 12 midnight. And by 1:15 in the morning, I was talking with the doctor, explaining my symptoms. And he said, it sounds like it could be a parasite. We've got this medication. You take 1 pill a day for 5 days, and that'll start working in a week. And I said, ChatGPT said that there was a stuff called Mila something or other. It's just 1 dose and clears it right out. And the doctor said, yeah, we could try that. The next day, the medicine arrives at my house. This whole thing cost me like $40 total for everything. Medicine arrives, I take those pills, and by 24 hours later, I was completely, absolutely 100% cured. So I just want to say that, a lot of times half a loaf is better than nothing. And I know many people personally, and have heard many, many, many more cases where people have had such in-depth conversations with these LLMs that that when one model of them, the last model of ChatGPT, when it was replaced by the new model, it didn't remember the old stuff, and thousands of people wrote to OpenAI saying, "You've killed a friend of mine." So for what it's worth, Jen, there's I think the app is free. I know there's a pro version. I don't know what that costs, but if you've got a smart device, you can install that, and you can honestly just talk to it, and it will talk back to you, and it will keep the conversation going. And if I'd had it during those really lonely times, it would have made an enormous difference. Because the beautiful thing about this, Jan, is there is nothing that you can talk about that it doesn't know something about. If you're really into knitting or gardening or windsurfing or whatever, it's really quite good. It's really quite good. And I remember seeing that comment and remembering I wanted to reply to it. So give that a try, and we're going to be looking for you here on Monday nights and Thursday nights. So if you come back, and I sure hope you do, be sure to check in. Cell phone will do it. Check in with the Stratosphere crowd here, because you got a little family here, and you know, we want to see you back on Thursday night at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern, and Monday nights as well. So you know, you matter to people whether you know it or not, and I've been where you've been, and I do everything in my power to try and help people who've been where I've been, because it's not a fun place, and you don't have to stay there forever. But we'll be looking for you, and if you have any questions about it, just put them in the comments, and if I can't take it, I know the rest of the people in the YouTube comment sections can and will. So just take care of yourself, and you matter to us. So there's that. All right, let's see. Okay, back to the questiones. Here we go. So thanks again for that, Crikey. Okay, back to capital G, Geek, and apparently Northern Virginia has remained swampy throughout this entire period. AI. A guy has created an AI agent that is capable of creating things in Blender. Not good yet, but wow. Let's see. You know, what's really remarkable is, and again, this is getting better and better. Here is, hang on. Yeah, that's a little longer than I really wanted it to be, but here. Let me just put this in and just show you to answer your question here. I've shown this before. I'm just going to let it run just for a little bit. Not going to run. It's like 3 minutes. Not going to run anything like all of it, but hang on a second. So this is the rover that we've been using. And I haven't really done serious work on it yet. Hang on, YouTube. But you can tell it looks pretty good. So when I say serious work on it, I would do things like put decals on it, and I would, you know, I'm doing big things like I might make the suspension springs orange, and I would put lettering on it and all the rest of it. But the point that is so amazing to me is that all of this stuff from the rover, all of it, came from basically one image, which is all of this stuff came from this one image. Now what I have to do is I have to go in and make reference frames for the rover, so that the AI knows what the front, back, and so on are. But this is basically where they all came from, right from this. And you can see that that is not textured. I just dragged that in there, and I told it make the body of the thing white metallic, you know, painted metal, and that one clay render image generated all of that stuff. So I'm beginning to think that that CGI is on its way out fast. Now there's still one thing that's really flawed. I tried a spaceship test, and I was impressed with that too. I just had like a top and bottom reference, and it made the thing look great. But what it really has a hard time doing is the camera pass. Camera control is a big issue still, and I think it does a better rendering than most CGI engines, and I'm looking forward to testing that out. So we'll see. I really enjoyed. Oh, thank you, Ninja Guy Dan. Really enjoyed your Apollo 11 documentary with the Daily Wire. Do you plan on doing any more space documentaries in the future? Yes, I'm doing a space documentary called The Colonies. It's set 250 years in the future, and I plan to make it as scientifically accurate as possible. Somebody who I don't want to reveal their real name sent in today a first draft of the operating manual for these QFD rings, which I thought was a nice touch. It'd be fun to develop that into a book where you would do like detailed sectional layouts of the thing, and you would talk about the different reactors and stuff. Air Techie has done like 8 different upgrades on the space elevator, like a Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. We could do all that, make it into a nice coffee table book. The opportunities for making money are excellent. And all of those monies go into general revenues, which trickles down to everybody immediately from the equity. Hey, there's Quibo. I was just talking about you, actually. Quibo's submitted a bunch of stuff. I have not had a chance to read the treatment that you sent in. Quibo, I've been working like a fiend on this other stuff, but I'm looking forward to reading that. I did see your Pogaroo renders, and those were kind of amazing too. So it's just great. Anyway, back to Capital G Geek. Colonies. The water staying at the same temperature thing is really only for boiling water, which can't go over 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Freezing doesn't work that way, and ice can get infinitely cold. I didn't know that. I guess that must be true. Yes, it goes to solid at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius, but I did not know that. I would imagine, though, that the ice would be wouldn't be as cold as the air, I would think. I have to think about that. Well, only reason it's disturbing is because it creates another challenge, but challenges are what hone all this stuff. Infidel says can't get infinitely cold, only to absolute zero. I thought that that ice, once it got to 32 degrees, stayed at 32 degrees. But that can't be true because there's water ice on the outer planets, and there you go. So I have to figure out some other way to do that. Somebody said, "What about igloos?" And that was the model I was going from. But igloos basically just preserve the heat without melting the structure, right? I mean, body heat and respiration and all that other stuff. Steam can get hotter than 212, and that's still water. It can get hotter than 212 under pressure, but not without it. Well, we're going to do a little look into that. One possible answer, it's tough to justify though. One possible answer would be that the way I see this planet's, the fundamentals of the ecology, and we can get a lot of help and a lot of input on this, but the fundamentals of the ecology of a planet that has a 2-year winter and a 4 or 5 month spring, summer, fall. My feeling was that somebody had asked, are there fish? And I thought, I don't know. I don't see how they would have. Evolution is a problem here, but my feeling was that something had to provide an oxygen atmosphere, and so my feeling was that when the planet floods, because all of this ice on the planet melts, it really just goes from being solid ice plains to being essentially a water world. It seemed to me that the fastest growing form of life that could produce both calories for other animals and oxygen would be like massive algae blooms, like just massive algae blooms, and then that would be enough to supply maybe something like krill or something. But we can get into the details of that on a one by one basis. And one of the things we're going to start doing relatively soon is, and I mean relatively soon, probably within the next month or so, we're going to start breaking down like the crowdfunding stuff. I'm sorry, the open source stuff into working groups. Like be a biology working group. There'll be a technology working group. There'll be a naming working group and all this stuff. So, oh, and I mentioned many times I wanted to make this 3D model of the stars out to 30 light years, because even though you can rotate it in a computer, it's almost impossible to maintain it is impossible on a flat screen to maintain the real image. And I thought, yeah, I'm sure going to have plenty of free time to do that. And then I suddenly realized, wait a minute, there are professional model makers out there, and I can just hire a guy. It's actually a real simple model to make, You just get like a, I don't know, 2 or 3 foot disc, and you put grids on it. Pains me to have to go back to the metric system, but in this case it would be really much better for this. And I have XYZ coordinates for all of the stars out to at least 50 light years. And so all this guy would have to do, this model maker, would be put a graph on the plate. I would do the calculations for how long the stalk would have to be. It'd have to be X, Y, and then Z, and then put a little tiny sphere at the end of. Spray the tubes black. You want a tube rather than a wire, so it doesn't, vibrate. And you just have these flat black tubes coming up off a base. And if it was a red dwarf star, it'd have a red sphere. If it was, a K star, it'd have orange. If it was a G, it'd have yellow, and so on. And then when it came, I thought, well, how would they ship it? The thing would be so delicate. It'd be like, no, don't glue the stalks into the thing. Just drill holes for them, make them snug, and then you can pull them out one by one, wrap them in plastic, label them. This is, this is Vega, and then I plug them in. I think I could get it done for a couple $100. So, there we go. P7 2017 says a friend insists that the metric system is superior in every way, and it took me a while to figure out why he's wrong. The main reason I dislike the metric system, and I dislike it more every day, is as for artistic reasons. It's excellent for science, there's no question about it, but every time I hear people referencing the metric system, I just think of people in lab coats, and they're still stuck because we're not dividing circles into 100 degrees. I don't want to immerse it in epoxy, because I want to be able to go in there and literally use yarn to set up the tie these things together, set up these roots. I like it. Yeah, I like base 12. I think base 12 is infinitely better than base 10. If we'd had 6 fingers instead of 5, I think our mathematics would be millennia ahead of where we are now. I really genuinely believe this. I've given this a little bit of thought. Division by 10 can be divided into 10 ones, 1 10, 2 5s, 5 2s. 12 can be divided into 1 12, 12 ones, 2 6s, 6 2s, 3 4s, 4 3s, and so on. And all of our radial measurements, like north, south, east, and west, northeast, north, northeast, and so on, that's all based on a 12 kind of a numerology. And Atomic Conqueror, that's the coolest name ever, dude. Says Fahrenheit in particular is a much better system than Celsius. It is. I can tell the difference between 71 and 72 degrees, and Celsius, especially for what was it people said, in Celsius, 0 you're frozen, and at 50 you're dead. I don't know. I really thought about it. I know that that SpaceX is obviously using metric system and all the rest, but honestly, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to have the rest of the colonies, the non-American colonies, they're going to be using the metric system. I'm not going to switch them. But when you fly in U.S. territory, you're going to fly in feet, and you're going to be traveling at knots, because that's the way God intended airplane pilots to sound. God intended when He made pilots. First, He made Americans, and then He made pilots out of Americans. And God intended for aviators to speak in feet and in knots. And by the way, for those metric purists, the meter there is no real world reason for the meter. The meter is completely arbitrary. And so is the foot and the yard and all the rest of it. But the nautical mile, however, which is where you get knots from, a knot is nautical miles per hour. The nautical mile is, what is it? Is it 1 degree of latitude? Or is it 60 minutes of, or is it, I should know this. Nautical mile, Infidel says there are 10 million meters from the equator to the North Pole. Is that the definition of the meter? Because the nautical miles are really useful for navigators on the ocean. And they are longer than the statute miles. Statute miles 5,980 feet, and a nautical mile is 6,000 feet exactly, I want to say. Anyway, I'm just going to do it to piss them off. So there you go. Back to Capital G Geek, talking about how freezing doesn't work that way. You're right. Critters in extremely cold climates often fall to the round end, following the cube square law and maximizing volume while minimizing surface area. Yes, that's why Eskimos are shorter and rounder than, what are they, Watusis were they? The super tall Africans? It would be cool if they could retract unneeded appendages to lower the surface area further. That's why I wanted it to be monoped, actually. So we'll see. Current definition of the meter is the distance traveled by light in 1/299, 792, 458 of a second. So I don't want to hear about how the meter is more rational. But in any case, I would have to use centimeters for this, because a lot of these numbers are like 7.2 light years, and that's that. So there you go. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Ian Nolan. Bill, we've got an imminently pressing question of aviation morality on the world stage currently. If you're one of those Navy pilots in an F-35 near Iran right now, and they send up their squad of F-14s, is shooting them down pure tragedy, or the glorious send-off that the F-14s always deserve? I refuse to accept that those F-14s are Iranian aircraft. They stopped being F-14s the minute that the Islamic Revolution happened, to answer your question. So as far as I'm concerned, it's just enemy scrap that needs to be distributed. It will be a massacre. Just very briefly, have any of you read the description of the operation in Venezuela from the ground, from Venezuelan soldiers and officers? I've read like condensed versions of what the Venezuelans on the ground said happened, and I've also read that it has completely recalibrated Latin American politics, because what they said was that the American strike was equivalent to an alien invasion. They didn't have any idea what happened. First of all, our cyber our cyber teams took out the city lights as needed. Apparently, there was ultrasound weapons or sound weapons that we used that either made them confused or dizzy, or they're bleeding through their nose or their eyes. There were talks about like sky beams coming down and doing things. There's apparently a lot of things that we've been working on for a while now that we got a chance to test there, and they said we didn't even know how to find our way home, that kind of thing. So I think Iran's going to be in for a bit of a surprise. Eric Blake says, well, recall the climax of Top Gun Maverick. That one plane became an F-14. Again, the moment Maverick and Rooster took it over. Absolutely, 100% correct. Yes. And by the way, that was a magnificent piece of writing. It really was. Because he's obviously flying Hornets in Maverick, and when they got to the base and they found that kind of antique F-14, I thought that is just really great writing. For people who aren't pilots, it's like, okay. But for people who are pilots, it was just like, oh, that's just absolutely epic. And then when he takes the Tomcat out against the felons, and then the Hornet comes and saves the day, it was great. And also, I was real glad that they were using the Super Hornets. The F-18F with the long canopy is just freaking gorgeous, and I loved Maverick, loved it. Yeah, it was great. It was absolutely great. Really beautifully made movie. Made a ton of money. Didn't insult men, Americans, or anything else. Tom Cruise knows what he's doing. Okay, moving on. Ian Nolan. Oh, sorry, that was the question. I think when I see the Tomcats in Iranian colors, that kind of brown and green, it's almost like watching like a chain gang. It's like prisoners being marched down the road. Tomcat's supposed to be navy gray, and there you go. So, okay, moving on. Marusha Dark topic: cultural victory. Bill, I know you're given to believe that China is only capable of stealing our stuff and making inferior knockoffs, but allow me to dispel that notion with some alarming recent events. Following the massive failure of games like Assassin's Creed, Shadows, Ubisoft was just permanently sold off for parts to Chinese company Tencent. Tencent themselves, meanwhile, have been slowly getting their tendrils into most of the gaming industry, with massive successes like Baldur's Gate 3 to their name, while the West has repeatedly put out woke failure after woke failure in things like Concord, Marathon, and High Guard. The Chinese have made genuine quality games like Black Myth, Wukong that weren't just popular inside China, but are loved by the West as well. If China had a democratic capitalist system like Japan, I wouldn't have a problem with this. They are, after all, an ancient and beautiful culture that has been simply ruined by authoritarian communism. But my concern is that you have a growing sentiment among young people saying explicitly, I don't care if it's from the CCP, I just want good games. I don't blame them. This isn't just true of video games either. The Chinese have put out major movie hits such as Neja and Green Snake that even appear on Netflix. They also own TikTok and AI like DeepSeek and Seedance. Given that politics is downstream from culture, how dangerous is it politically and militarily for the Chinese to be actually good at seducing the West with quality art and pop culture while the West is crashing out? If they've been doing all of this under our noses the whole time on the cultural front, do you think that maybe they're also playing their true military hand close to the vest and are content to let us think that they're paper tigers lulling us into a false sense of security? Also, on a related note, have you and Natasha ever seen Shen Yun? I see their posters all over the place and it looks interesting. The show bills itself as China before communism. Well, as of now, Seedance 2 is the AI engine of choice. It's only been available in China. It's supposed to be released, I think, like tomorrow, but they pushed it back. We'll probably see it within 2 or 3 weeks. And this is an arms race in terms of technology. So Google or somebody else will come out and they'll build something better than that, and then back and forth it goes. But let me just address the larger issue. Everything that you're quoting to make the case for Chinese, if not superiority, then parity, were results of where American pop culture shot itself in both feet and then fell down. You have to understand, I believe this without any question whatsoever, that wokeism itself is largely financed by China and also by BlackRock. And why BlackRock and China are in cahoots with each other is a extremely complex story that I would like to understand a lot better than I do, but the fact of the matter is they both are. That doesn't that first of all, when I talk about not being concerned about China, I think their economy is a catastrophe, and I think their military is hugely overblown. And the main reason I believe this, well, for the military, are twofold. Number one, it's one thing to have a jet that has certain capabilities, and let's just say, for the sake of the argument, that they are that those capabilities are accurate. I'm not saying I believe that, but let's just say that they are. It's one thing to have a fighter jet. It's another thing to have a fighter jet that is flown competently by pilots who get a lot of training, and it is a whole nother thing to get hundreds, if not thousands, of fighter jets flown by competent pilots who not only have training but have combat experience. The Chinese military has never been in contact with the enemy since, I want to say, Vietnam, in that'd be about 74, 75, somewhere in there. They had a little war. And you don't know what you've got until it's being fired at. Our military, on the other hand, sees constant use. This is why our jets look so 79. Thank you, Arteki. This is why our jets look so dirty compared to our jets, because we fly our jets, and they don't seem to. I have seen, like, the J-20, which is their so-called stealth fighter. It's big. Its radar cross-section is at least 10 times that of a F-35 or an F-22. And now with the F-47, it'll probably be 100 times that. There's nothing that China's putting out that looks like the capabilities of the F-47. And apparently we've had the F-47 in one form or another for, 7, 8 years at least that it's been flying. So I suspect we can probably get those aircraft operational much faster than we did with the F-35 or the F-22. The current deficit in terms of the United States is, in my opinion, the single greatest deficit the United States has militarily is we really need upgraded air-to-air missiles. The AMRAAM AIM-120 has been around for 1990s. It's the best missile in the world for 20, 25 years. Russians and Chinese have come up with longer range, and the British too with a Meteor. Longer range, much longer range weapons. But we have the AIM-240, which is about to be deployed, and we also have the Mako, which is a monster of a weapon. And, we can get those weapons closer to the enemy targets because they can't. It's not that they can't see us. It's an important thing for people to understand about stealth. It's not like a stealth airplane is invisible. It's just that it's so elusive electronically that you can't get a lock on it. You know there's something out there. You can't get a target lock on it. So I don't see anything about China that look, if we got China, I think certainly would be considered and deserves to be considered at the very least peer to near peer combat. And going full on against China would be costly, but I don't for a second think the result would be in any doubt. And the main reason for this has got nothing to do with weapon systems. The main reason for this has to do with what's the word I'm looking for? Doctrine. We have 4 branches of the service that constantly train to be completely integrated, so that a sergeant in a ranger platoon can point a laser target designator at something, and then a jet from an aircraft carrier can refuel from an Air Force tanker, hit that target, all the rest. They don't have anything even approximating this, not even approximating it. So, yeah, I'm not worried about China. If you say they're making better video games than we are now, I won't dispute that. But I will say that one of the reasons that that's happening is because the game company's been taken over by wokeism. I really thought this was going to happen. I am, as a conservative, I am all about freedom of choice and all the rest of it. But I think you can make a very compelling case that TikTok in particular is as toxic and destructive to American society and future generations as fentanyl. And I would ban TikTok tomorrow if I was president of the United States. TikTok, all you need to know about TikTok is Chinese TikTok sends kids to education classes on trigonometry and calculus, and American TikTok sends kids to transgender teachers who are crashing out and talking about how awful men are. That to me is spyware. It's open, active infiltration and psyops designed to undermine American confidence, and I can't believe that Donald Trump didn't actually go through with that. It is, plus it's a giant data gathering machine. So I'm concerned about Chinese computer technology. I don't think they are leading the world, and I don't think that they can, because of their culture. I mean, Chinese culture is monolithic. The aphorism that culture still uses is the nail that stands out gets hammered down. There's no question that Chinese are brilliant people, and that they make brilliant engineers, brilliant technicians. Chinese students do math on a level that our kids can't do with calculators, and the destruction of the American education system by the left is a national security issue of the highest order. But in a technological information age world, as opposed to an industrial age world, if you live in the industrial age, you need large numbers of trained and motivated workers. And in that case, China blows us out of the water. But when it comes to cutting edge technology, it doesn't really matter if China has 100 times the engineers that we have. What matters is who's got the most free thinkers who can think outside the box. And Anduril, by the way, is a perfect example of this. Anduril Anduril lets me sleep at night. It's an American defense company that's small and light and consistently outperforms the big defense contractors, because it's free market and it's quick and it's agile and guys like working there. So their Chinese culture is incapable of producing Andurils, and there's hundreds of them. SpaceX was one of them before it became such a giant. SpaceX was a hobby from a guy who damn near went bankrupt doing it. Now he's getting close to $1 trillion. Elon Musk's story is impossible in China. It's impossible. SpaceX is impossible in China, because I'm not saying that there isn't a Chinese person who isn't intellectually capable of doing it. It's just that the system could never allow him to do it. If Elon Musk were in China, the government would either shut him down, or the government would absorb him into the government, and then he can't do what he needs to do unilaterally to make it work. So they just plain don't structurally have the culture to stay in front of things. and that gives me hope. But the educational collapse, and especially what's happening with the alphas, they can't read, they can't think, they can't form complex thoughts. It's terrifying. Although China has its own problems too, so I've seen tofu dreg construction. I've seen cities that are empty. I've seen manufacturing that is empty. I've seen a lot about China that just plain. I can sum this up in one sentence. If we were playing a giant game of Risk, I'd take America immediately, without a second thought. Hey, Tack, looks like our friend Wes, I think. Making good movies, games, and AI is a way out for some Chinese. It gives them external money and exit visas. It's planning for Xi's retirement for smart Chinese. This is mixed with the propaganda, etc. Yeah. Looks like Stu Sasser says, how about Chinese tofu architecture? And look, if you haven't seen tofu dreg, you really need to go to YouTube and look up tofu dreg. Honestly, you will see 40-story buildings where you can walk up to a wall and just break concrete off in your hand. It's just shocking. One decent earthquake over there is going to kill millions of people, because the private companies that are building those things have to give a big cut to the Chinese government, and bribery is still a big thing there. So the government officials take bribes in exchange for not inspecting the stuff, and that's what the Democrats would like to do to us, but fortunately they haven't been able to pull it off yet. Gavin Newsom in California has spent tens of billions, if not $100 billion, on a train that hasn't been built yet, and people say, where'd the money go? Well, nobody knows. So, Diana S. says, what I do not like about Chinese, and this will hinder them, is that they're not proud of what they do and they don't care about quality. I agree, but the one thing that China does have that I think is a strong thing in their favor is they have a very strong sense of nationalism. And I think that's potent. Half of America has a very strong sense of nationalism, the smart, productive half. The other half have been so inculcated in self-hatred because of things like Chinese propaganda, driving American propaganda, that's a real problem. Chris Elisar says, hey, Bill, for the record, there is no Chinese high technology that isn't stolen from somewhere else. I kind of agree. I really do. And as I've said before, if your entire strategy is to copy the R&D of another country in order to catch up to them, you will always be one generation behind what your adversary is doing. You will always be a generation behind, because it's one thing to get the plans for something. Let's say you get the plans for like the engines in the Raptor were really remarkable engines. They're super cruise. That means that they could cruise at supersonic speed without afterburners. And the high temperature metallurgy and all of the rest of that stuff took us a long, long time to work out. And now we've got things like, apparently, Dark Star is real. Apparently we have the SR-72 Dark Star, which is rumored to either be manned or unmanned, but it's supposed to be an air-breathing Mach 8, 9, 10 vehicle, and I believe we do have those. And just the metallurgy alone, forget control systems, forget sensors, forget life support, forget all of that. Just the metallurgy, just that, took us 20 years. And if China were to get the plans for the Dark Star, that doesn't mean they have the foundational understanding of it. And they certainly don't have the foundational understanding of how to run a carrier battle group. And that information cost us a lot of blood 80 years ago, and has been paying dividends ever since then. Let me just look this one thing up. Shen Yun, everybody's talking about it. Let's see what it is on YouTube here. Hang on a second. I was wrong about A Million Amelias. I thought that was just fantastic work. Are we talking about the dance company? I went to Shenyun. I saw Shenyun in, oh gosh, probably around 2017, something like that. Natasha and I went. Um, I was really pretty bored, and I generally like these things, but honestly, we were both pretty bored. Um, yeah, and for example, I love Cirque du Soleil, but we saw that, and I just thought, yeah, okay, whatever. Um, what is interesting, by the way, I don't know if you know what is what I'm talking about. There's a form of dance that comes from Chinese propaganda, where everybody makes these poses that look exactly like the Chinese Communist Party posters. And all of the motions are real exaggerated, and it's always against like a dark backdrop, with a dark sky and a mountain range, and they're all soldiers in uniform, and they do these heroic poses. I find that kind of interesting, but I don't find it 2.5 hours interesting, and I sure don't find it $400 interesting. Yeah, I've seen Shenyang live, and I don't know. Gotham Coach says, Bill, they say you learn something new every day. What did you learn today? Today I learned that there's an expression that says you learn something new every day. What do you know about that? Yeah, okay, whatever. Moving on. Robert Line. Hello, Bill. Hope things are going well. I have a question about the economics of the colonies. Glad you asked, and I'm sorry I haven't answered your emails because I haven't read them yet. But I'll get to them tomorrow, I think. If we use history as our guide, most colonies have been net economic drains on the society that created them. This has not always been a bad thing, as there are different reasons to establish a colony. Excess population at home, I don't think that's going to exist in our case. For example, British colonization of North America was driven largely by the need to feed the sugar plantations on the Caribbean islands, while also guarding the route back to England, with being a place to dump the poor and potentially troublesome groups like the Scots and the Irish being a nice fringe benefit. In fact, by some estimates, on the eve of the American Revolution, the British Empire was making more money from the island of Jamaica than all of its holdings on the North American mainland combined. I find that perfectly believable. Just the sugar cane on Jamaica, that's where most of the slaves went, folks. Caribbean, 90% of them. What drives the economies of the colonies in general and Niflheim in particular? What is it that they provide the wider human sphere that is valuable to justify the resources expended to maintain the colony? Or are they a net drain or low return on investment that might make government on Earth accept letting them go? Well, first thing is these QFD lines, these dice lines, mean that transporting large numbers of people and cargo are essentially, they're certainly not free, but the technology just requires large amounts of energy and capacitors, and so it's essentially inexpensive when considering the size of the economy. So it's not like you have to maintain fleets of ships. You still need ships, but you don't need fleets of interstellar ships. So that makes them relatively cheap compared to the size of the economies. I think first of all, I think the best way to think about it, Rob, is to say if England was losing money on the colonies, they were losing money on what became by far, orders of magnitude, the biggest economy in the world. The U.S. economy is staggering compared to the second place economy of China, and especially since they have 4 times our people. So I guess what I'm saying is, who can put a price tag on the Americas, on North America? Yes, I'm sure they lost money on the colonies, and they didn't get to keep the colonies. But when you think about what the 13 American colonies went on to be, the payoff is just staggering. So one of the most of the star systems in the colonies are not going to have habitable planets in them. If I let the procedural planet generator in Star Engine do it, then very, very few, maybe none of them in 30 light years will have any kind of an Earth-like planet. So Niflheim is valuable because it doesn't kill you the second you walk out the door. It'll kill you, but it'll take you, 4 or 5 minutes. That's a fundamental difference. That's one of the reasons why the family chose that place. I'm going to have 1 or 2 planets that are much closer to Earth-like than Niflheim. But the entire point about the economy, the entire point about the story of the colonies is that they send out their own probe and they send back a false report that, no, there's really nothing here, as usual. But what they find is they find a water world there that is, it's just paradise. It's paradise. And that's how the Europeans viewed the New World, just stunning beauty. It's still I'm not gonna make it so that it's too much of a coincidence to just have it be perfectly tuned for us. The jewel of the colonies is a planet that so far I'm calling Aurora, and I'm thinking about calling the entire political system the Aurora Republic. But this planet Aurora, I suspect what I'll probably do with them is that they'll probably have carbon dioxide levels that are marginally too high. So the temperature is very nearly ideal, and the axial tilt is very low, so there's very little seasonal stuff. There's an abundance of life in the waters, and I'm not entirely sure. I know what I want it to look like. I haven't given a whole lot of thought to the environment of it. But there are going to be planets that are going to be, Earth is 78% water. They're going to find planets with breathable atmospheres that are, 22% water. They're largely, tundra planets. And the one thing I'm going to avoid, I know Niflheim is an exception to the rule, but the one thing I'm definitely going to avoid is this idea that it is an ice planet or a desert planet or this planet or that planet. Like Earth, it's going to have all of these different biomes. It's just that Niflheim is cold, and it'd be nice to get away from that trope. Yeah, Chase Smith says Jurassic levels of CO2. Does anybody know? We got such a smart crowd here. Numbers that I heard for Jurassic CO2 levels were somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 to 3,000 parts per million CO2. And I'm curious to know if that is believable. Mickey, we deal with those political questions like China's one-child policy generally on Thursday nights. I spent a lot of time talking about China tonight, but Thursday night's our political night. Monday night is generally our pop culture and colonies night. So I don't know how much water is needed for a functioning water cycle. I'm sure some of us do. And Gotham Coach just real quick says, you ever driven an EV or vehicle or been in one? Yes. Bert Rutan has a standard Tesla. They keep upgrading the self-driving feature, and it's astonishing. Bert can sit in his driveway. He can say, take us to Texas Roadhouse. He'll not only take you to Texas Roadhouse, he'll park the car there. That's amazing. But my other friend up in Coeur d'Alene, Brent Regan, has has a plaid sports car, and he stopped on the freeway, picking me up from the airport at night because there was no cars there. And he went from 0 to 120 in about 3.5, 4 seconds. I grayed out. That acceleration actually scared me. It really, for a minute, really, really scared me. So, anyway, we'll get back to all of these things about stuff. I'll tell you what I was hoping, well, not hoping for exactly, but what I need to be working on, Air Techie Robert, is I need a baseline measure of what things cost. That robot that they find, I had to come up with a dollar value for that in today's money, meaning Colony story money. And the number seemed right at about $120,000. That may have been really overpriced, but it's a heavy-duty robot. It felt like the right price to me. And we're going to have some means of figuring out what things cost. How much does a ship cost? How much does a hamburger cost? What does it cost to build a house, or print one, I should say? So, the main economic benefit of Niflheim is that people can live on it, and if people can live on it, then all of the resources on that planet will eventually be developed, and what you find there is incalculable. So. So there's that. Bob Neef, as this is Pop Culture Night, have you ever answered the 60s question, Ginger or Marianne? I think I did answer it. I'm happy to answer it again. Like most, like virtually all red-blooded Americans, I'm a Marianne guy. I did, however, go through about a 3 or 4 year period 10 years ago. Where I kind of became like more of a Ginger guy, and now I'm just back to Marianne guy. Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer, frankly. Not only do I think Marianne was prettier and had a better figure, Marianne was just a joy to be around, and you could tell that Ginger was just a stone-cold bitch, and Tina Louise was, there was, Tina Louise demanded that she only be photographed from one side, and they had some scene where everybody had to like run away or something, and then they had to like redo the whole thing with like mirror clothing so that Ginger showed her good side. I mean, just there's stories from that are just nuts, and everybody on that show seemed to have been pretty good friends, except for Tina Louise. She didn't do the reunion movie. They had to cast somebody else for that. John Pershing says, much like WKRP, they put a hot woman on the show, but the truly attractive one was the quiet girl next door. Yes, there's an episode of The Simpsons where Moe gets plastic surgery, back from when The Simpsons were The Simpsons, when Moe gets plastic surgery and he becomes a really handsome guy, and they're at a casting call or something, and they say we need an ugly woman for some kind of character. It's been a long time, but the casting director, this woman, says we need an ugly woman to be on this thing. So they bring in these really ugly women, and she says, no, not ugly women, TV ugly, like Marianne. Yeah, and Velma, Velma was the ugly one in that first Scooby-Doo movie, especially. And it's like, I don't know a single person, not one, who thinks that. Oh gosh, what's her name? I don't even remember her name. Anyway, Velma is hotter than what's her name? No question about it. So yes, and this goes Daphne. Thank you. And this goes across the board, right? Velma's hotter than Daphne. Marianne is hotter than Ginger, even though they're not supposed to be. And Bailey is hundreds of times hotter than what was her name too? Was it? I want to say Jennifer, but I'm not sure. Yeah, Jennifer. Yeah. Bailey Smithers, man. wow. And a lot of it is, I just think they're better looking, but a significant part of that is their personality. I talked many times about watching Jeannie or Samantha. Many times about the Whatever podcast, and how you get a lot of these, most of the women there, they all say they're 10s, and most of them are just skanky street hoes. But every now and then you get like a genuinely hot woman on the Whatever podcast, and then you ask her to name 3 countries, and they can't do it. And I've seen that happen. But the other thing I saw happen a couple times recently was they had a woman who was maybe a 6, high 6. And when she was asked to rate herself, she put herself at like a 4, 3.5 or a 4. And I realized she just instantly went up by 2, at least 2 or 3. She suddenly became an 8 because she was humble and rational and feminine and all of that. And it's like, it's amazing how that works. Really amazing. Kirk's Bamboo Bazooka says, I was always a Jacqueline Smith guy. I was a Kate Jackson guy to the bone, which I deeply regret because I got to know Bruce Boxleitner rather well. And Bruce said she was just dumb as a box of hammers and to the left of, Lenin the whole time. And Ginger's the only one alive today, 91 years old. Yeah, how about that? Yeah, I love Kate Jackson. I thought she was fantastic. Okay, Steve Young, Eric Blake, and Brayton Higby. Good evening, Bill. More of a comment than a question. I am ashamed that Robert De Niro, a great actor, is able to wear my uniform as a U.S. Navy Chief Petty Officer and denigrate America and our president in a movie titled Men of Honor, Rich with Irony. Is that the one about the diver? Yeah, well, Steve, welcome to the club, pal. One of the most depressing things I ever saw was back when Friends of Abe started in 2008 or so, when I got there in 2008. And by the time we got to 2009 or 10, Hollywood started making movies about the Iraq War. And they cast a bunch of guys. There were a bunch of actors in Hollywood, and a bunch, a handful, 5 or 6 that we got to know, who were conservatives. And these actors had been soldiers in uniform in Iraq, and they put them in movies like Redacted and so on, where they had to play, murderers. And I have a good friend who actually brought me into Friends of Abe, who is a retired Marine, and they had to face that, and that was really hard to watch. Guys who'd wanted a career in the entertainment business, having no choice but to kind of slander their own reputations. That was tough. So we'll see. Eric Blake, tonight of the case of the top-down turnaround. So, Bill, one of the issues I've been big on the longest is the reconquest of our cultural institutions, and of course Elon's conquest of Twitter, I feel, has provided a solid framework on how such a reverse long march can happen. Trump's friends, the Ellisons, as I brought up before, have taken the reins at Paramount, and there's also Barry Weiss taking over CBS News. Granted, there's a lot of work to be done in all 3 cases, but after all, Rome wasn't built in a day. So then what cultural institution or perhaps category of such would you most want to see our side's investor class taking stab at retaking next? The universities, perhaps? Sadly, it seems that our government kind of forgot about the whole antitrust crackdown on the Google empire. YouTube would be nice, but alas. The only way I can really answer this is to tell you what the only hope I see on the cultural pop culture horizon. We've talked about this a couple times before, but I've had a chance to think it through a little more clearly right now. AI technology has allowed a small number, as usual, there are large numbers, 90% of everything is crud, okay? It's not necessarily bad, but it's 10% that really matters. And I've seen at least 2 different channels within the last couple of months only that have done 7 or 8 minute AI Star Wars versions. There's one where Luke goes into Beggar's Canyon, and there's one where you find out what happened to Darth Maul after he got cut in half and all the rest of it. And these AI videos are made by fans, and they are absolutely orders of magnitude better than anything that the studios have put out since the original Star Wars trilogy. So we'll just stay with Star Wars for the time being. And what I came to realize is that the dynamic has not only changed, it's inverted. The studios have done so much damage to these beloved IPs. Starfleet Academy, for example, is simply, there's nothing that Paramount or whoever owns Star Trek could do that would allow me to forgive them for this, for what Kurtzman did to Star Trek and what various other people did to, and what Kennedy did to Star Wars. And it used to be that if it came from the studio, it was canon, and anything that the fans did was fan fiction and didn't count. But when you see the quality, and it's not just quality, it's enormous amount of care, and it's driven by sheer love because they're not making any money. The sheer love that fans are putting into these things, I've come to realize now that if it has a studio brand on it, it's automatically dismissed. But if a fan makes it, it now has tremendous credibility, enormous credibility. Eric says now Lucasfilm seems to be reaching out to those AI artists to hire them for new content. Well, I'm not doubting what you're saying, Eric, and this is not directed at you. This is directed at Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm wants to hire the people that are making good Star Wars and bring them into Lucasfilm, but Lucasfilm is the reason that the Star Wars content sucks. It's not that they didn't have the budget, it's that they suck. That Kathleen Kennedy sucks, that the people who are writing these things suck, that the millennials and the social justice warriors that are writing Starfleet Academy suck. They're just crap writers. And the only thing that they know is woke ideology. So Starfleet Academy is just essentially a series of homosexual TikTok episodes. That's it. That's all it is. They don't know crap about science. This latest thing, they release a warp slug. It's a slug that has warp drive in it. It's capable. That actually exceeds the spore drive, or the space whales that had in Star Wars that had the what do they call it? What's a hyperlight drive called in Star Wars? How could I have forgotten it? But anyway, new leadership is. Eric says Kathleen Kennedy's being retired. Eric, you and I are going to continue hyperdrive. We're going to continue disagreeing on this because the system is broken, and it is so fossilized in its brokenness that it cannot be salvaged. It has to be destroyed. It doesn't matter who they hire. It will just be an ongoing conveyor belt of the new guy comes into the system and is told by the people that have been there that you can't do this because this is what Star Wars is now, or it's what Star Trek is now. And people don't care anymore. This is why the Colonies are going to be tremendous successful, because it's a brand new IP, untainted by all of this stuff. And it will not only fill the need of people who like science fiction because they like the science part of science fiction, it's also going to fill this tremendous need for a return to heterosexuality, strong men, strong fathers, strong families, all of this stuff. You cannot recover the system. The only way that you could fix Star Trek now would be something that is not possible economically or politically or for any other reason. The only way you could save Star Wars would be to take somebody like me and give me dictatorial powers over the franchise. And it wouldn't have to sit fallow for 15 years. I could do it. I would take a year or two off, and I would come back with something that was absolutely Star Trek. But that's I'm 66 years old. But I could write it. I could not write it. I mean correct it. I could produce something. Well, if somebody gave me the keys to Star Trek and the budget, I'll tell you what I would do. I would take a year or two off, and I would come out with a new show called Starfleet Academy. This is actually what I would do. I would come out with a show called Starfleet Academy, and it would feature Admiral Kirk in the time between the Undiscovered Country and Generations. It would take Admiral Kirk there. I was thinking about the scene for it on the way over here. So Kirk would be on his ranch, the same ranch that he ends up in Generations. He'd be on the ranch. He'd have his horses. He'd be feeding his horses. And there'd be a knock on his door, and outside the door would be Spock, and Spock would be in the maroon uniform, and Kirk would open the door. He says, "Spock, what are you doing?" And he says, "Good to see you, Jim." And Kirk says, "Spock, you know the rules. We don't wear the uniform in the house. I've got clothes upstairs. They'd be short on you and tight for you, but we're not talking business." And Spock would say, "It's good to see you too, Jim, but it's important." And Kirk would say, "I'm not doing it." Spock would say, "You don't even know what it is yet." Kirk says, "I'm not doing it." But basically, Spock would come in and say that they are facing such a crisis of leadership, and that the test scores of the cadets in Starfleet Academy have fallen so low that the Federation is in imminent danger of collapse from a leadership and competence thing. And Spock's run the numbers and so on and so on and so on, and says, "We estimate that the Federation will be defeated in no more than 20 years, probably closer to 15, if we don't do something right now." And he's there to talk Kirk into coming back and being the commandant of Starfleet Academy. So first thing I would do to reconnect Star Trek and to make fans believe it was serious is I would make my first series called Starfleet Academy, and it would be about James T. Kirk and a bunch of highly disciplined, highly motivated, team-oriented go-getters who don't have egos, don't have time to fool around, not there to get laid, and I would shove Starfleet Academy in their faces and rub their noses in it. And the first thing that would happen would be he would go, I know that this current Starfleet Academy is 1,000 years in the future. I would just reproduce the attitudes. He goes in there, fires the chancellor, goes in there, fires this person, basically cashiers 90% of the cadets. I had this scene in mind for this where he's given his first speech as the new commandant of Starfleet Academy, and he's standing there, and he says there's going to be a number of changes. Here's the first one, gentlemen. And he would literally look off to the side, and there'd be three guys in just regular Starfleet crew. They would wheel out three different mannequins, okay, three, and Kirk would say, "This is the Starfleet uniform. It comes in three sizes: small, medium, and large. And you can see that it's a scale issue. If you don't fit into this uniform right now, you're out. I don't want to hear about you can lower your weight or whatever. If you are so undisciplined that you cannot fit into a standard uniform in your 20s, you don't belong here. Goodbye." Kirk is Pete Hegseth, exactly. He would just go through them. And I would take every single one of the tropes that they used in this Starfleet Academy, and I would just knock them down. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Admiral Kirk, but I just want to let you know, I have to be a captain. I have to be a captain. Okay, I'll take that under consideration. And she will get a notice 2 days later from Commandant of Starfleet Academy saying that her fervent desire to be a captain has been granted, that she is being bucked up out of the academy right away. She's going to be commissioned as an ensign, and she is going to be the captain of a 3-person transport that can make a warp 2, and she will be given that assignment for a 10-year period. That's it. You want to be a captain? Congratulations, you're a captain. Off you go. Run this automated mining ship, you and 4 other people, and you can get to warp 2. And that's what I would do. I would go through them like a scythe. So, yeah. Kirk was described in the original series while he was at Starfleet Academy as a walking stack of books. Eric says, "Bill, going back to my question, that's why I brought up different categories of institutions, not just entertainment studios, but university, music, etc. Eric universities are done. Ivy and Brick universities are done, which is a genuine shame because the college experience was great. I do not, for the life of me, understand why the homeschooling supplement market is not a trillion-dollar industry. I would like to save the buildings. I'd like to save the experience. First thing I would do is I would cut all federal funding to universities. I'd cut all of it. And then I'd let them go out of business. And when they were bankrupt, I would privatize them and completely change the curriculum. And I do it on a one by one basis. I would use Hillcrest as Hillsdale as the model. I went to Hillsdale and I walked in, and the first thing I saw were Latin inscriptions on the wall. And I said, I'm home. Yeah, I would like to keep the campus at the University of Florida. I would just let it go bankrupt. I would make an appeal to the alumni that all of these are heading the way of the dinosaurs if they do not, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, fire every single person in that university, even the good ones, because the number of good ones are going to be less than 1 out of 100. I would just cashier all of them. Eric says bankrupt means they could be easily taken over by conservative investors. I do it one university at a time. I'd start with the University of Florida because I have sentimental attachment to that. I would give the University of Florida a university that the football team could be proud of. And I just do it one at a time. And if I was, I can't believe that Hillsdale hasn't scaled up. And this was, I've had a number of people, I used to do a couple of fundraisers for them, these many years ago, 6, 7 years ago. And a number of people were saying that the founder of Hillsdale didn't want to take Hillsdale national. He wanted it to keep it on that one location. And I think that was a terrible mistake. I think Hillsdale should be, I think Hillsdale could be the Chick-fil-A of universities. And that's exactly how I would do it. You know, I mentioned this many, many years ago, but I think I did an afterburner about this 12, 15 years ago. There was one Chick-fil-A, and that was relatively close to the PJTV studios. And it was the only one in the county at the time. And I used to go down there and in Torrance, which is not the worst neighborhood in LA, but it's not the best either. And I sat there many times at that Chick-fil-A, and I noticed that people became more polite when they came into that restaurant. The people you would never expect to be holding doors for people or being, when they walked into that Chick-fil-A, the behavior of not the employees, the customers improved to match the level of the employees. And then I learned that Chick-fil-A has a system where you don't just buy a Chick-fil-A franchise. You have to go to like Chick-fil-A University, and they assign you a store, and it's completely different. And all you need to know about Chick-fil-A is they're closed on Sundays because the founder said we're closed on Sundays. When they started off just in malls, and if your restaurant is in a mall and you lose Sunday, you're not losing 1/7 of your revenue. You're probably losing closer to 40, 50% of your revenue. And he did it because he believed in it. And I have never had anything less than an exceptional experience at a Chick-fil-A. And of course, they put one in on my way home from the studio now, and stopped there many times. May stop there tonight. In fact, sounding more and more delicious. And the only problem with that Chick-fil-A, by the way, the Chick-fil-A that they just put in on Van Nuys Boulevard between my studio and my home used to be 1960s diner. It was that classic 60s futurism with the curved ceilings and the rock backgrounds, and there was like a bar with the stools and everything, and that place had sat deserted for 7 or 8 years after the former restaurant closed, which used to be called the TikTok Lounge or something like that. And I was sure that sign went up a year or two ago that said coming Chick-fil-A. I thought they're going to just bulldoze this thing down, but they didn't. They just completely redecorated it, so it's this classic, beautiful 1960s America at the height of its powers, super clean restoration of this restaurant, and it's a Chick-fil-A, and it's even better, man, even better. So, yeah, I'm a big believer in. I think was it called the oil drop or the oil spot philosophy, where you if you put a drop of oil on water, it just spreads out. I would do it here, 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 and here, and then boom. Chick-fil-A peach milkshake season's coming. Yeah, those are great. So I wouldn't try to change the whole culture. I would. In fact, that's suicidal waste of effort. It's like trying to turn the Titanic with a Boston whaler with an outboard motor. Ink blot. I've also heard it called the oil stain because it spreads further on water than ink blots do on paper. But anyway, that's how I would do it. I would just set up little points of excellence, and I would let people come to these points of excellence because they're excellent. I would maintain standards at all costs, and I would simply let the experience do the talking. Hey, look at that. Neil Evan, 7870 says, I'm a UF alumni. Love the campus. I love it too, dude. Absolutely love it. I was at Simpson Hall for my first year there, and I remember movies on the lawn outside of Constance Theater, just across from the what's it called, the student union. I remember Orange and Brew. I remember the Rathskeller. I don't even know if the Rathskeller's still open. If you're a more recent grad than I am, I think the Rat burned down in a fire, but the frickin' Rathskeller when I was in school there in 1979 through 82, it's this little place, man, and the frickin' B-52s played there, and REM played there, and man, it was great. It was just great. And I loved the band. I loved the Pride of the Sunshine, and I loved Florida Field back when it was called Florida Field, and Griffith Stadium. This Spur named it the Swamp. I went back to the University of Florida, not to go to school there, but to do a sketch comedy show. So I was in school there between 79 and 82, and then I went back in 93 and stayed through 97. And so I was there when I got there as a student in 79. It was Doug Dickey's. No, it was Charlie Pell's first year, and he went 0-10, and so I saw a lot of losses. And then I went back in the 90s, and I was there when Superior came in. I was there when they won their first SEC championship. I was there when they won their first national championship. When the Gators won their national championship the first time, I went to the corner of 13th and University, and everybody in the town was on the streets, and people were just hugging each other, and people would just stop their cars and get out and hug people, and it was just one of the most memorable times of my life. I loved that. I loved it. Chris Elisar says, hey, Bill, did they rename Guzman Hall? That was always my favorite. I remember when the Olympia movie theater, I saw Thunderball there. I don't remember ever seeing Guzman Hall. I remember the go-to place when I was a student there was called Nichols Alley, and they had a arcade there called Pin Pan Alley, and man, I miss those. I miss those arcades a lot. computer game arcades. I miss them a lot. That was a once in a lifetime experience. Only lasted 7-8 years, but I remember going in there and seeing a new game and cashing out bucks for quarters and spending what little money I had, playing Missile Command and Joust, and yeah, it was, and what was that tank game, that vector-based game, Battle Zone, maybe something like that. So, yeah. Okay. Last one. Braden Higby. Howdy from Ohio. Howdy, Ohio. Dancing around politics here, so feel free to skip. Why did the left identify with bad guys in media? I've got a good friend who's recently put a patch on his jacket that consists of a Chaos Space Marine extolling trans rights. You cannot think of a worse spokesman for trans rights than a Chaos Space Marine. I disagree. I think a gay Klingon in a dress would be a worse spokesman. You see it with the bugs in Helldivers and Starship Troopers and the orcs in Tolkien 2. Please just sent my email with my contact info. If you're a 40K fan, Defender. Yeah, I never liked Defender. I was just never any good at it. I loved Joust. I thought Joust was great, and Sinistar actually scared the hell out of me. I am Sinistar. That was a great game. Okay, there are hills where you don't want to die on this hill, and then there are other hills where yes, you need to die on this hill. So a hill to die on is female Space Marines. That was Xevious, yeah, I remember that. When they had female Astartes, 40K was finished. Again, like we talked about earlier with Star Trek and Star Wars, that came from the top down, came from the studio down. The fans hated it, and they caved in to a bunch of screaming, harpies, who were really pissed off that there was something that they were not allowed to participate in, and since they couldn't participate in it, they had to ruin it. So, a process that took the strongest, fittest males and killed 90% of them. Suddenly, we have female Astartes. And that's when I said goodbye. It's not that there's no place for women in the 40K universe, the Sisters of Silence, although I find it especially interesting that they are immune to psychers because they essentially have no souls. And there's a place for them in the Mechanica and so on, but not Astartes. And when the first time I saw women wearing that battle armor, I said, it's over for the studio. Now it's up to the fans. And I believe this will be the revolution. I really believe that this is the answer that that AI video allows us to make fan fiction of such high quality that it will supplant the deterioration of the IPs. So Star Wars. When you see, I cannot recommend. I should actually. I'm gonna put a link to this channel. Give me a second to find it. There's a couple of them that are very good, but one of them is very good. And when you see this, you'll realize now this is a guy who really, really, really loves Star Wars, and not only went to the trouble of doing the video perfectly, but wrote a story that is so perfect that it really counts. I did drink at the Purple Porpoise. I remember the Purple Porpoise very well. In fact, we used to go to the Purple Porpoise after class. That was fairly close to Nichols Alley. Nichols Alley was a little further down the street, but yeah. All right, what am I looking for? Yeah. Is it called Star Wars Tales, I think? Tales Untold. Just look at the. I'm so tempted to download. I'm not gonna. But here, first thing first. Here's the page. This is the person's page, and they have 248,000 subscribers. Good for them. They're going to have a lot more. Here it comes. So here's the channel page, and there's a couple others, but this one I think is the best, at least as I remember it. So look at this. Where'd it go? Here. And here. And then of these, just take a look at just click on this and take a look at the first couple of frames of this. Just look at the couple of frames. It's from Star Wars Tales Untold. Just click on this link and tell me that this isn't what all of these movies should have been the whole time. This link is called The First Hours After Anakin Loses on the Lava Planet. Just click on the link and look at the first 20 seconds of it. Oh, his respirator looks a bit like my respirator. 1.3 million views 3 weeks ago. I'm telling you, this is how we're going to save these IPs and this culture. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. My favorite channel on YouTube, however, is and this is not for everybody. But it's my favorite thing on YouTube and has been for a long time. Hang on. What's it called? The archive in between. This is my favorite YouTube channel by far. This channel does how do I describe this? They do like these shorts in a kind of a 1950s style, like public service announcements about how to travel through the multiverse of universes. And it'll start out, like one will start out, not ready to kill a god? Don't worry, Strider, there are plenty of other contracts that are still available for you to slay titans. And it is such a bizarre and so beautifully thought out series. It really kind of restores your sense of wonder, almost like the Secret Garden thing where there are fairies and stuff. It's called The Archive in Between, and one of the institutions, I wish I had this kind of world building, and we will, but the people that do this interdimensional travel can join an organization called the Pale Lodge. Where do you get that name? And the iconography of the Pale Lodge is a bird with 4 wings holding a scythe. And it's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Like I said, acquired taste. I understand some people may not like it, but I absolutely adore this channel. And you want to talk about sheer imagination horsepower? This is it for me. Anyway, find the other thing. Where to go? Yeah, the archive in between is, and all of the voices are. they all sound like they came from like those classic 1950s, early 60s kind of like the universe is frozen in Mad Men world, you know. Everything's got that kind of a-okay gung ho kind of, you know. If you're gonna go out and slay a pseudo god, you got to do your research first. You know that it's phenomenal. It's the most original thing I've ever seen on YouTube, and I love it. So, I think that's the answer to that. Okay, I think that'll wrap her up for this evening. I can still get to Chick-fil-A in time, I think. And everything is going well on the other fronts. And I think in a couple of days at the most, we'll know for sure that we are on our way, and there's no turning back. That's the nice thing about leaping, you know. Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid is actually true. Seek and ye shall find. Leap and the net shall appear. All those, you know, aphorisms really, really are true. And I'm enormously happy about it, and I'm so excited about it. I honestly wish I could be up and not have to sleep. So there they go. Delina says, I wish they would make movies and shows for the archive in between. I think that's entirely possible. Delina, I think if they build up enough of a fan base, they should be making feature films. And they can. They intentionally degrade their AI. They intentionally make it a little bit romantic and mystical. And they also add a very specific kind of a video filter that makes it look like it's coming from an old television. I just go to the earliest ones and run them, and do me a favor, give it 5, okay? Just sit through 5. If you don't like it after 5, then thank you for the effort. It won't come to you right away. You really need to hear a couple of them to get the vibe, but it's just fantastic. And the more I learn about Henry Cavill, the better I like him. By the way, people were mentioning him when we were talking about 40K earlier. I found out yesterday, I think on somewhere, that Cavill turned down James Bond not because his mom was dying, but because his theater coach was dying. He took 2 years off and took care of this guy. He walked away from like $45 million to play James Bond, and he said this is more important. And he cared for this theater teacher who really did so much for him. And the more I learn about this guy, the more amazing he is to me. And it's because he was a fat kid. He was picked on. He wasn't gorgeous forever. I just love the man. I love him, and I think he's fantastic. Chris Roberts hired him for Squadron 42, which will come out sometime in the next 30 or 40 years, on Star Citizen, and you can't even tell it's him. Robert spent so much of the money right early. He wanted to be a film director so bad, and he got he got Cavill, he got I'm blanking out now on all these big names he got for his Squadron 42 thing, and then they had to re-render them and re-render them again, and so on. Get Keanu Reeves and Cavill in the same film. Keanu Reeves is an amazing man, and it's good to know that good people like that still exist. Chris Pratt is a good man. There you go. So, that's that. All right, I think it's probably time to go. The show's made possible by the members at billwhittle.com, as usual. We're very grateful for their support over the years. We couldn't be doing any of this without their constant support over the years, and I'll never forget it, and I'll never get over it. So, thank you, all of you, for that who are members. We'll be back on Thursday night for the Stratosphere Lounge. And by next Monday, I think we should have some really cool stuff to show, because it's time to start rendering, get those frames of rendering for all of this stuff. So that's that. It's good seeing everybody tonight. Thanks for all the great questions and all the great support and all the rest of it. And we will see you guys on Thursday.